To This Week in Sports. We are on year 2 here at This Week in Sports, and this is your host, Nick, with my co-host, Zach.
Hello, hello.
And we are coming at you with another week of sports action. You know where I'd actually like to start, because I just did a bunch of reading on this, is I would love to chew on our new little NCAA news that we got here at the end of the week.
Oh, yeah, that little guy.
Yeah, you know, just the thing that will change the entire landscape of college sports.
Yeah, I do believe it came out, what is today? Today's Sunday, we're recording, so it came out Friday.
Friday was the ruling, yes.
Yeah, that the courts ruled that the NCAA schools will be allowed to pay their student athletes, and I think the cap right now is roughly around that $20.5 million mark, and I do believe that's across.
20.5 each school can pay across all of their athletes, which has raised some concerns from basically any college athlete that does not play football or basketball.
Pretty much. I mean, the big money makers inside of the NCAA are those two sports.
College football by kind of a wide margin, March Madness in a pretty strong number 2 position, and everything else pulling up the end.
Yeah, there's some little like women's soccer you can sprinkle in there a little bit. Same thing with gymnastics.
I think college, the Baseball World Series is the number 3 event on the NCAA calendar as far as money making.
Yeah, I don't know any. I can't even name who was the top NIL money maker for the baseball. They haven't really got too deep into that. I know a few gymnastics people who are making some money off their name, image, and likeness NIL. Most of what I know is basketball and the football people are getting the bag.
Now this is, to be clear, money that can be paid in addition to any NIL deals. This will just be income from the schools. And the interesting thing to me is they've phrased it in such a way that they're like, oh, it's a voluntary thing for the schools, as if one school does it, that's not immediately setting the standard for everyone else.
It's voluntary. If it depends how we define voluntary. From a competitive standpoint, you're going to have to pay the players. In general, it's across the board, and also you're going to have to supplement that with finding them NIL as well. So there'll be a nice-ish balance where you can spend so much of your money on an athlete and then find them NIL to make up whatever their total income is.
Yes. Now, of course, this has already been a thing. NILs have been around for 4 years, according to all the reading I've been doing. And that's already been a pretty slippery slope in terms of athletes, you know, suing institutions for lost money revenue if they, you know, are not playing or something. What was that thing we covered in Vegas earlier in the year where
the Vegas quarterback decided that he was going to opt out because they were not projected to make a bowl?
Yeah, someone had promised him a certain amount of money that he had not seen yet, and he was like, I'm out, guys.
Yeah, I didn't get paid. I'm good.
But because this is all, you know, separate from, that is still like the teams or the schools, and this is all still very strange, and kind of the big piece of this ruling is that it kind of does drop the facade anymore that this has anything to do with giving these kids an education, and this is an entertainment industry we're dealing with here that needs compensation throughout.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this is they're going to even go back and back pay all the athletes, I do believe, from 2016.
2016 on, over the next decade, we'll be getting chunks of a $2.8 billion settlement into the lost revenue for those years as well. I don't know how they chose the 2016 cutoff, but considering they've been making this money for decades and decades, but some is better than none, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be a whole new landscape. They're not, I don't know. It's not like they're not professional athletes because they're not quite making professional athlete money, but they're not
making any money now makes them professional. Is the other argument, because that's a whole nother wrinkle that the NCAA will have to figure out with the Olympic Committee, is that a lot of the non-fancy Olympic sports that cross over with college athletics are now also going to have to deal with, are we Olympic qualified anymore, since now we're professional? Like, not all the sports allow professional athletes in.
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, I don't That's I don't know.
It's a big unknown, and then the timeline of it all is also a little insane. Payments for the 25-26 school year will start July 1st. That's less than a month away. So they really came down basically as close to the wire here as they could with making their decision on this ruling in terms of this current school year. And obviously 20.5 that they have to do this divvy up between all of the potential student athletes at a school. Most projections say about 75 to 85% of that will be going to football.
I mean, that's where all the money is. So yeah, you go on and try to build as good of a football program as you possibly can. I know schools like CSU posted and how they're very excited in this because there's potential there that you could draw in some bigger names, but I don't know. It feels
the victims in all of this are the bubble kids, the walk-ons, and the non like scholarship roster spots, which are now basic. So it's like a double-edged sword because what they've essentially done in this settlement is said you have the option to pay all of your rostered athletes, and I guess part of that can be scholarship. Because now all roster spots will also get scholarships, but there will be fewer roster spots altogether.
Fewer roster spots altogether for sure. So this changes the landscape of how we think about NCAA sports as a whole, right? Because one, we're already seeing this right now with NILs. You're having a lot more people who are transferring out and into places. They're staying in college longer. Like you said, the victims of this are the people who are walking on, the people who you don't really see or know or get the chance. It's a lot of people who's kind of,
if you're not a top high school recruit athlete now, it's kind of like your chance at college athletics kind of just got closed out from you potentially.
yeah. I mean, there's always potential that you can go to another school, like a small school where this is not allowed and build your way up. But also, it's tough to do that because, like I said, the athletes are staying around longer. You have a lot more athletes staying around for that second or third or fourth year, fifth, some sixth.
And these are other issues that I think everyone involved in NCAA, like the competitive committees or whatever, who are involved in these lawsuits, also mentioned in a lot of the reading I did. That those are the next knots to kind of untangle. Is how is it fair if a football player can play for like 6 years or something, essentially 6 calendar years, and yeah, the whole roster spot thing. There are still a lot of patches to put on this big giant ship of the college sports.
Like, really, it doesn't matter for your sport, like you said, unless you are football, who is going to get a big chunk, and then basketball, who's going to get the other large sum. Some schools will divvy that out to whatever. Like, I can imagine some women's soccer playing pieces in that if you have a very good organization. Lacrosse, maybe just a little bit, just to get just a little chunk of the money.
Well, I think the fear from the small, and there's a couple of articles I read on this who were actually like talking to, so like some like track and field athletes who are like, we'd rather have some protections knowing that our student athlete experience isn't going to diminish thanks to this, because now the school is going to be paying the football players. We might get cut a check for $3,000 and then told, oh, but you have to pay for your own meals and, get all your own equipment because the athletic room is not stocked or whatever. If you're on the, cross country team now, who definitely isn't earning any big money for your school.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to think about. I don't know. The idea of like college athletics and how schools make money is so we don't. I feel like it's a very black box for most of us.
It's very labyrinthian. There's so many layers of administration and committees and of committees and like the notion of the NCAA as an organized business entity it's like it's one desk of chair people trying to organize a dozen different cats who all think that they're the biggest cat around and should have the most say in the process.
Yeah, and what the NCAA's interest does not always align with all the student athletes and even maybe the student athletes as a whole. right? Because the NCAA at the end is a business, and they are in there to make money. So I think that they've been trying to avoid this because now you have to pay out more money than you get to keep, and no one really likes to do that in the business world.
If anything, yeah, I've seen this as an attempt by the schools to try and get a hold on limiting the scary growth of NIL money already in its first 4 years, and being like, if we're paying them directly from the school, we can kind of organize as schools and say, here's what the cap is going to be, so we're not getting blown out of the water here.
You still don't have a hold of what the NIL is, right? Because I can come and pay you for your name, image, and likeness, however much money I want from my business as I can get. So if Amazon comes along and says, I will pay you hundreds of millions of dollars to go, you want to come play for Amazon U or wherever that may be, the schools can't have a stop to that because that's all included in what the athlete's allowed to do now.
Yes. So I think that's sort of the takeaway of this, is that we are in a very uncharted territory with a lot more questions to sort out that will definitely take some more legal wrangling to do so, because there's even a whole new thing of the other thing the colleges are trying to do is organize in a way where they're trying to get everyone on board with going by the same rules of how much you're allowed to pay students, like on an individual level, because state by state it has already gone to like state legislatures, where Tennessee is apparently the number one sort of applier of this strategy, where they have gotten their state to basically make it so they can pay students unlimited amount of money.
Yeah.
And other states have already put caps on it, and so they're like, guys, we can't be working off different rules here.
Yeah.
And I think grand takeaway of this is what they want is some sort of federal regulation that they can apply across the board to everyone in every state, to all schools, and be like, hey, we're all playing at least by some base core rule book that we can all agree on before we start finding our weird shortcuts and cut arounds. But now we're walking into a territory of there are going to be a lot of people finding shortcuts and workarounds and loopholes, and
it's almost
squeezing the juice out of everything they can.
You mean exactly like they've been doing for God knows how much time now?
Yeah, kind of, but at least the athletes are seeing some of it.
They're going to be seeing a lot more of it now versus the none to little that they got to see before.
Indeed. That was our the big NCAA news. We'll skip our way down the line. We'll work our way up to the big stuff. A little bit of football news this week.
Just a little bit.
Some stuff that kind of finishes our understanding of the layout of teams coming into next year.
Kind of, and some teams, it's a whole new landscape once again. The new landscape, we'll start there. The Indianapolis Colts announced that their quarterback, Anthony Richard, who we talked about previously on this podcast, he's going out indefinitely. He has a shoulder injury, and they don't know sort of when he's expected to be back or to recover. Luckily enough for them, though, they did go grab Daniel Jones this offseason, so he's, I guess, slotted in to be their starter would be my best guesstimate.
Certainly that has to be the current operating plan, but that's never a good sign when the people who are very interested in knowing what the timelines of sports injuries are can come out and say, we don't know what the timeline of the sports injury is going to be.
Yeah, it's kind of just, I mean, the poor kid, the poor guy, just another note in his story, struggled. He was highly doubted to be drafted. Then when he did get drafted high, he came in and they didn't really give him an opportunity. And then he finally got his opportunity and he just stopped playing for some unbeknownst reason to any competitor out there and professional athlete. So he had to answer that, and now he has an injury. So just a tough hill for Richardson to climb. But on the other side, still handing out jobs to old men. Aaron Rodgers finds his home in Pittsburgh. He signs a 1 year, I do believe, $10 million guaranteed. I do believe there is some incentives there to get that up to 20 plus.
Wow.
But he has a new home, and Pittsburgh has a brand new quarterback. Worst case scenario for them, they did not do
absolutely terrible news if you're a Pittsburgh fan in my eyes. You were thinking either, was it Pickett or Wilson?
Pickett, Wilson, or Fields, one of the two quarterbacks you had in your roster, both who jumped ship to go elsewhere.
And all of a sudden, you've got old man Rodgers.
I don't know who. I don't know. We'll see what Mike Tomlin does with this one. I thought Russell Wilson was dead, but he found a way to revive him. So we will see if that works for Aaron Rodgers as well. That will be a fun mix and matchup between him and Aaron. I mean, from a emotional standpoint and how they are characteristically, they're very similar, very dry, and give you kind of nothing overall. From like a media standpoint, so you have no clue what's going on at any time. But we'll see.
I suppose so. Yeah, it's a strange combo to find ourselves in a world where Aaron Rodgers is the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. But yeah, I guess we'll see how that works out or how long that lasts.
Tis the way of Green Bay quarterbacks. It seems.
OTAs were over, which is just the mildest bit of football news. It means we saw some balls getting thrown around, and I don't really put much stock in OTAs at all.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, Denver News, Bo Nix looked pretty good throughout. He looks still very, very good. We literally like him as a quarterback, so that's super nice to
Very nice to not be worrying about the quarterback competition this year.
Yeah, the News were kind of waiting to see what happens for us. Again, another old man. We're trying to see where Von Miller ends up. I mean, I know he's been kind of hanging around the Denver area with all his friends that are still back here that he played with, but there's also...
I'm pretty certain he was on one of the radio shows last week and put a definite end to a Denver comeback where he was like, I'm not playing special teams, and these guys got plenty of good rushers who will also be contributing in multiple phases.
Kind of loaded that up a little bit. So the other place for him to end up, oddly enough, is out in Vegas. He may...
Oh, no. Yeah, Vaughn, he couldn't.
Yeah, the rumors are that they were maybe in discussions on bringing Von Miller into the Vegas organization.
That would be the darkest timeline. I couldn't handle that, I don't think.
I don't know for who.
It's not great for either side.
Oh, the other news I saw was you'll get a kick out of this. The Raiders, not being the incompetent team they are, allegedly they changed Sean Jonty's stance in the backfield, and they brought up Chip Kelly, who's the offensive coordinator, and he said, "No, I never told Jonty to ever change his stance or anything like that." And then not but a minute later, he's like, "But the position you have to be in a bent knees. It's a bent knees position." So he said, I didn't tell him to change it, and then he said, but
I did expect it to be different than what he was doing.
He did have to change it, yes. Yeah. So good for them.
Great start. Off to a one. Oh man, if that'll actually be very funny if the Raiders, can just have. I mean, it won't be funny for Ashton to have his rookie season ruined by incompetence, but very funny for the organization. Be like, what are you doing with this kid?
I mean, that's just kind of how they've been running for the past, I don't know how many years, probably since DeMarcus Russell, to be honest. A lot of not great decisions just through and through, and they continue to do so. I feel bad for him because he could have been here where things are on the up and up. The sun's a little brighter over here. Grass is greener. I will say that for sure.
It would have been nice, but I'm a little surprised we didn't have a stab at him, but Sean Payton clearly knew what he was going for in the draft.
He went way too high for us to even like have a thought of him. I mean, 7th pick. Good news for us. I mean, there's still a decent amount of running backs out there for us to go get and supplement our backfield if we want.
I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, it's that's a pretty deep pool of talent out there.
Dobbins still out there. Chubb still out there. Zeke's still out there if you're feeling a little risky. But a lot of other big names who we know are still out there on the market. From what I've heard from the OTAs, is Harvey looked pretty decent overall. Estime, we're kind of trying to figure out what he is and what he's going to do. And then kind of McLaughlin's positions I'm going to expect to get filled by Harvey because they are same, but one's younger. So.
Yeah, again, we'll maybe dive into exact personnel after we get a maybe preseason game or two in and see how the depth chart's looking.
Yeah, once we get through training camp, that'll be fun because we will see some new names and places on the roster as well.
Yeah, there's always a couple of surprises at a training camps as far as who shines, who maybe has regressed, and who goes down for the season with injury.
Yeah.
Love those. Let's talk some exciting baseball news.
Ooh, I like exciting baseball news.
Well, get your brooms out because the Rockies, despite all odds, not only got their first series win, they swept the Miami Marlins in 3 games this last week.
They were due because they are
They did
roughly
set the MLB record for it was 19 series in a row that they had lost.
22 if we go all the way back to the last.
22 including last year, yes.
Yeah.
19 this season.
Correct. But we were due for some wins. We just happened to get them all at once. We were on like an 8-game losing streak. And
yeah, something like that.
You expect them to win basically right now once a series.
Yeah, our record skyrocketed from 9-52 to 12-52 or something.
Yeah, that's a good percentages right there. So we were due to get those wins regardless. Like you said, we were expected to win a third of the games, which sure, we kind of can do roughly. There are some 4-game series in there to really shake some things up, but we are, for the most part, winning a game a series, and that sweep there kind of put us back on track-ish.
I will say, there's been all the coverage of how poor the team performance has been basically up and down the roster, but you will have to give this team credit. They never roll over. Despite the lack of results, it's not from a lack of trying, which isn't necessarily great.
I was going to say, we don't roll over on purpose. Sometimes we just do roll over, but that's just kind of the circumstance
Sometimes
of the game.
Even the best effort is not very good, but they are still giving their best effort out there. And that is, I think, very nice to see get paid off for what is essentially a handful of old guys who have lost their chance at the glory days in Colorado, and a bunch of young kids who are desperately trying to learn how to be big leaguers in the worst possible conditions.
There's a couple dudes who are kind of like in between, like, this is the worst ride I've ever been on.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But for the most part, we've either got guys, I mean, that's the split. They're either making their MLB debut this year, or they've been in the league for 10 years, and here they are.
It's the best job I could get. It's the only job I could get.
Give a little rundown on those 3 Marlins games. A fun note about game 1 of that series on Monday, a recorded attendance of 5,380 something.
Are they in a AAA baseball, baseball stadium?
As a matter of fact, the Miami Marlins are still playing in a full MLB park, not like their cousins, the Tampa Bay Rays, who are at Steinbrenner Field still. There are a few mitigating factors here. There was a severe weather alert in the area, so some folks just weren't going to risk it for going out. In fact, they played one umpire down the whole game because one of the 4 did not make it into the park. But overall, when you're talking about even Coors Field nowadays with our dwindling attendance numbers, we still average like 20,000 a game. The MLB average, I think, is about 12 to 14,000 per game. And so 5,000 was a sprinkling of fans in the lower bowl and nothing else as far as attendance goes. And of course, that couldn't be helped by the fact that it was a matchup between 2 of the worst teams in the league.
Marlins they are bad.
They're bottom of their division. They're not in like the all-time worst team well, they hadn't been in the all-time worst team discussion until this week, because we can kind of transition into it, but the Miami Marlins did not have a good time this week.
They've been having a little bit of a rough go. I'm pretty sure after we left them in Miami or wherever they decided to take off to. I don't follow the Marlins because
why would we?
There's only 5,000 people who potentially follow the Marlins. Maybe. But afterwards, I saw there was a clip of their pitcher warming up, and the catcher gets it, tries to throw it out to second base. Pitcher steps right in front of it, gets beamed in the head.
It's kind of worse than that. Even the catcher was completely at fault on this one. By the way, I did go and look this one up after you put it on the doc because I had not heard about this. It's extra funny because it looks like it's from spring training because they are playing at against the Tampa Bay Rays, so they are in the Tampa Bay or the spring training field, and they were wearing their alternate uniforms that look like the spring training outfits where it's just the solid colored tops. And yeah, it was. So for those who are unfamiliar with the ritual of the warm-up pitches, whenever an inning changes over and the defenders take the field, the pitcher is given 8 throws on the mound to warm back up. get ready to make his throws that count for real. And on that 8th pitch, he normally steps off the mound to one side, and the catcher practices his throw down to second base. And in this instance, the catcher, I mean, it's because if you hit your very tall pitcher, this dude's like 6'3", and he's a good foot off the bat, like off the entire dirt mound on the third base side.
I don't know where it looked like he was trying to throw it out to shortstop.
It was like this throw would have been so far offline anyway that the center fielder would have been in danger probably. But yeah, instead he rockets his, I'm going to throw it as hard as I can to try and get it down to second base quickly off the back of his own pitcher's head. And yeah, that's just an unforced error of comical proportions. I didn't even see if they kept him in because
he did go out and pitch. He did
because they in the clip I watched of the event, they showed like that the training staff and the manager were like kind of made him go through a fair bit of his paces to prove he was going to be okay. I mean, at the very least, you're going to have a huge knot coming like right on the back of your dome where the hat sits, and that's not going to be comfy. But yikes! Yeah, it's. What a way to have someone go down on your injured list when it's by a teammate.
He did. I'm pretty sure in that game he did continue to pitch and finished off however many innings he pitched. I don't know if he was a reliever or what, but
I think he was the starter.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, yeah, just a wild week for the Marlins. But other notes for the Rockies out of that series, Hunter Goodman was our big hero of the trip. He had basically the 2 home runs that won the game in Game 1, and had the late game winner in Game 2 of that series. Game 1 was a 6-4 close victory there, and then Game 2, 3-2. That one was tied 2-2 all the way into the 8th, and Hunter Goodman hit a late home run there to give us the lead. But other big kudos to shout out, Kyle Freeland. Along with the Rockies snapping that series drought, Kyle Freeland gets his first win in Game 3 after nearly, 10 calendar months since last September?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. And we have to shout out that the bullpen actually held all of these late leads.
Yeah, I will say in these games, there's like the World Series, and then there's the opposite of that. This is
toilet bowl.
Basically, it's a toilet bowl because both these games, all the games were super close. I mean, it could have gone either way.
Yes, and I think that's the big lesson of this baseball season, at least for me as a takeaway for the game of baseball, is that it's far less about how much production you have and far more about when you get your production in a game, because we've seen it. Like we got beat by the Phillies with 4 hits, but it was because their 4 hits scored 2 runs. And it's those sorts of situational plays of, can you take advantage of the other team's mistakes? Can you take advantage of, like fortuitous just happenstance in the game? And largely the answer has been no, but thankfully in this matchup, I think with the Rockies, desperately trying to claw their way out of the basement, found themselves an opponent who was ready to make more mistakes and give them more opportunities than other teams did, probably.
Yeah, and how often do you get to not only win your first series, but also have it be done in a sweep fashion?
That, I think, was the real gravy to it, especially because, like I said, games 2 and 3 were pretty close. I think it was 3-2 in game 2 and then 4-3 in game 3. Something like that. So, yeah, not gimmies by any stretch of the imagination, but something that you would hope would roll your momentum into a series against a very good team, maybe a team that you had just recently seen, maybe just the week before, like the New York Mets. And this time you get to play them in your home stadium. That seems like it should go well, right? Like we got beat up a little the first time around, but now we're a little older, a little wiser, ready to play our best. No,
we are still, unfortunately, the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah, the Mets have already taken 2 out of 3 games in this weekend series here.
This is looking like it's going to be a sweep. 8-2 up top of the 6th.
8-2 top of the sixth in game 3 of that series as it is happening while we record today. Yeah, unfortunate scheduling that we had to go right from the bottom of the barrel straight back to the cream of the crop teams to face, because there's also quite a bit of roster shakeup that happened in between these two series, which continues to kind of defy logic in terms of developing prospects. But we called up a few more kids. We optioned out some old guys. A few of the names we'd already been mentioning earlier this year are off the team now. And so a bit of a new look for this series against the Mets. But yeah, nothing to write home about in these ones. It was, 4-2? Actually, yeah, Friday's game was very close until I think the 8th inning, and then the Mets were like, "Oh yeah, no, we're a clutch we're a good baseball team. We come in those clutch moments and get late RBIs." So they took that one 4-2. Yesterday's score was, let me see.
Yesterday's score was 1-8.
That's right. Yeah, yesterday's was a whooping, and that was a Herman Marquez start where, I don't know. Marquez and Santana, I didn't find out exactly what the reasoning was, but game 2 of the Marlins series, we did a weird thing where they had a guy come out and it was like his MLB debut, I think, to start the game, but he only pitched 1 inning, and then Senzatella came in the second and pitched like 3 or 4 innings. And I don't know if that was like the Rockies' approach to, well, if Senzatella has been historically bad in the first inning and getting blown up, what if we just don't have him pitch the first inning?
I mean, because looking at the game you're talking about, they have 2 pitchers who pitched basically slightly over 1 inning, and then they had a pitcher pitch 2 innings and another pitcher pitched 3 innings, and then we had to say.
That's almost the Jim Tracy 4-man rotation again, but kind of opposite. I don't know. It's weird. But it worked. We got the W. So, yeah, more innovations in baseball coming out of Denver perhaps this year. But yeah, a little bright spot there. A 3-game sweep. We're probably not going to see anything like that again until the Chicago White Sox series we have in either late July or August. Will be the next time we're up against anyone of our caliber in our weight class in terms of baseball teams.
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. I mean, I was hoping like Atlanta, maybe, but
the Braves have had a rough go of things, especially since they've been in playoff contention recently as well.
But I think, like you said, I think they are trying to turn that ship around.
The biggest thing is that we still don't have the offensive consistency to punish bad pitching, which is what the Braves Achilles heel is right now. They're not getting very good pitching, but if we can't take advantage of it, it doesn't really matter.
Arizona, maybe, potentially. They're not very good either, and we pay them tough-ish.
Yeah, potentially. Looking ahead at next week, we do have a 3-game set with the Giants coming to town before the Rockies go on the road to face those Braves for a weekend set.
Yep.
So yeah, we will, I guess, find out where we rank amongst the Braves, or where the Braves rank. But do you think the next week for power rankings, the sweep does anything to bump the Rockies out of the basement?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
I think, unfortunately, I think the Mets will still be above us because I think their division is slightly nicer to them than our division.
Marlins?
Yeah. The Marlins division.
Mets are definitely going to be ahead of us.
Yeah, Mets will for sure be ahead of us. The Marlins will be right above us just because I think their division is slightly nicer to them and just overall than our division is to us.
It's definitely been, I mean, yeah. I think we would get more credit for a sweep if it wasn't against the team having one of the most embarrassing weeks of all time.
Probably. Which
is tough to say we covered a pretty embarrassing team, but yeah, this is a bad week for the Marlins.
Yeah, they find a way at least once a year to show what the Marlins can really do and how bad baseball can really be sometimes.
Now, that being said, before we wrap up this week in baseball, I will say the Marlins and Rockies both have something that a couple other teams wish they had, and that is an MLB stadium to play in. We've already covered that the Rays are playing out in Steinbrenner Field, and that's been fine.
Theirs is because of natural causes, act of God.
Yes, they got hurricaned. The Oakland Athletics have been playing out in their Sacramento minor league stadium for 3 months now, and they have 3 years on the lease out there that before their new stadium is even a thought of being ready. So probably more than 3 years. And this field has messed up both their team, the away teams. They've had the away team saying, well, I feel bad that this kid has to make his MLB debut here because normally you get to do it in a real stadium. And it's just so bad. They're not set up for MLB broadcast, so not only is there not like camera angles of like the corners of the outfields, the managers in the dugouts can't even see them. The A's lost like 2 runs on a double that they couldn't challenge because they couldn't see the play in the corner of the field.
I mean, to be fair, they did this to themselves.
Oh, they absolutely. I mean, yeah, the ownership did it to the player. We're not hold the players on the field accountable.
I don't. When I say them, I mean the ownership, the people who own the A's did this to them, to everyone involved in baseball. But
yes, indeed. So it's I'm not sure how long that situation is going to remain tenable out there, but it's funny that it's forecast to go on for many more years. The latest one that happened this week that caught my attention was apparently. So it's not a 100 as we know. Major League Baseball fields are all a unique little snowflake. They all have the 4 bases in the infield, but then their outfields can be basically any dimension you want. But a pretty common factor in most Major League ballparks is that the warning track, which is the little patch of dirt between the grass and the wall, the outfield wall, to give the outfielders a nice little warning that they're about to hit the end of their running room.
There's something very, very sturdy coming.
Yes, is standardized at about 15 feet of dirt before you get to the wall, so that you don't really have to think about how many steps that is as an MLB outfielder. The warning track out in Sacramento is 25 feet.
It's a warning forever.
And so they had a play earlier this week where their left fielder hit the warning track, felt his 2 steps, and jumped and expected to land into the wall. Hit nothing, missed the catch, and gave up 2 runs on the play.
That's like some like MLB The Show type of stuff.
That's very reminiscent of what it looked like. As someone who has been playing MLB 25, The Show, on the Nintendo Switch, where it is quality production, let me tell you.
And jump.
Yep, I'll tell you this, it's for me in particular, as someone who still enjoys the retro games, it's like a incredibly well polished PS1 game.
Beautiful.
And that's fine in my book. And I think that's going to cover all of our baseball news this week.
The one piece I do want to cover before we head out is...
Oh, yeah, the ESPN thing. I completely forgot about it because I did not read into any of this. Tell me about it.
Manfred decided, I guess, earlier this year that he was going to opt out of their ESPN deal that they have had set for a while. Mm-hmm. He opted out and said, we're going to go get more money elsewhere. Unfortunately, no one offered him more money elsewhere, and he has gone... I'm pretty sure they have him on record saying that he regrets opting out. So I think him and ESPN are probably going to try to work out a deal here. And unfortunately, I think it's probably going to be for less money because now that
certainly
ESPN knows what their value is, they're going to be like, well,
we were actually overpaying for this product before.
Pretty much.
That's very silly. Yeah, this is, I think, 2 companies that were used to being sort of the big boys on the playground and have become relatively obsolete in their mediascapes. MLB as a television product is probably the least interesting of the 4 major sports in terms of like, if you were running a TV network and someone's like, I have sports I want to sell you, baseball's the one you'd be least interested in.
Nowadays, I think that is true.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like back in the 90s, it was 90s, ESPN could
still
be like, yeah, we're the number 1 sports network and baseball is the number 1 sport. There's more games of it than anything else, and we want to broadcast as much of them as we can. But yeah, baseball is not that hot a commodity anymore, and ESPN is not that hot a network anymore. There's like, it's still got its big market presence, like we still get ESPN and ESPN2 somehow on our YouTube TV subscription. So can't really avoid it, but it's certainly not the end all be all like monolith it used to be.
Yeah, I feel a little bad because comes back to how we initially started the podcast. Like, it does feel like baseball's in a weird dark spot. Like, I'm curious how much longer they can continue to offer the massive contracts they do for.
Yeah, we discussed it last week of does there need to be a salary cap? It kind of seems like it. Most of the other sports are rocking with it so that they don't have this wide variation in team payrolls.
Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense that if I'm only bringing in so much money from my TV deals that it can be split out between the owners, eventually it's going to become a non-black sport where you're in the red all the time as an owner, and that's not fun for anybody. And eventually it's not going to exist because all the owners, for the most part, and especially from experience here in Colorado, really, really like making money as an organization.
Yes, I mean that is always where the rubber meets the road, is whether or not it will be profitable. But let me check here real quick, because I know the NFL has a revenue share between the teams.
I would assume the most sports do.
Yes, Major League Baseball does share revenue.
Yeah, which is why it makes no sense for the Colorado Rockies who are just benefiting off the backs of the big guys. There was
well, no, if anything, it would be, in this regards, it'd be the Marlins who are like, with their no turnout. A day at a baseball stadium that only draws 5,000 fans, I bet does not pay for like the employees who work the concessions or whatever.
No, it's really the other owners that are keeping this team alive.
Yeah, and that's like that's where no one complains about Dick Monfort's baseball team, because Dick Monfort still says, "Here's my Coors Field check. Our park is still making money, gang."
Yeah, we are making enough to have some sort of profit. Maybe little, maybe not as big as some of you other guys, but we are making some money.
Yeah, I think I mean, certainly we are in a position where those dynamics are gonna have to start changing. We've already seen things that I never thought would happen in baseball, between the pitch clock that exists now on pitchers, the fact that the designated hitter is just a universal rule. That used to be a thing that people would like die about, the National League not having DHs, and now it's like, no, we're doing it and it's fine and no one really cares anymore.
Yeah, that one's the one I never thought would actually come, because it really gave a difference between what the two leagues were, but now everything's the same.
Which is fine, I get. Like, in retrospect, it's like, yeah, it wasn't that big a deal. And baseball has seen some major upheavals in its history. But yeah, this is definitely kind of that era. I did see another thing about almost certainly they are going to push for the automated balls and strike system to be implemented league-wide next year. In a funny thing where, so they have a committee for these like pace of play and like rule decisions that is, I want to say 11 votes on the committee, but 6 of the votes are from the MLB itself, 4 of the votes are from like players, and there's 1 vote for umpires. So the MLB can still do anything it wants because their 6 votes,
they have majority.
Yeah, are automatic majority. It's just a matter of if one of them dissents, then they can't do what they want.
Pretty much.
But yeah, that is a thing that they've already said will be part of their proposal. So get ready for that next year.
Yeah, the umps, and I know this year they've been a little bit more harsh on the umps, I would say, because there's like you have to meet like a quota of something, and if you don't make enough of the right calls, you get kicked down, basically back down to the NCAA.
And somehow we are still seeing some egregiously bad umpiring behind the plate, which is only furthering the flames of like, we cannot keep getting it this wrong, guys.
Which is why we are going to go to robots for some of it.
Yeah. Apparently, I guess the initial plan is going to be that it will still be the umpires declaring the balls and strikes, but teams will get 2 challenges per game to see if there is, to basically send it to the computer and see if they're right or not.
That's so dumb.
It is the softest like compromise you can make for the umpire. Be like, no, you still matter. It's fine. We still need you to.
There's a
Your eyes are good.
there's
You
a
know what you're talking
there's a
about.
baseball influencer who I follow on Instagram, and there was like a call, and it's like baseball is one of the few sports where it's like if you were to go take a test, you have the right answer on the test, but if the teacher tells you it's wrong,
Yep.
there's nothing you can do.
And you just have to adapt to the teacher being wrong.
Yeah, then it's like, but it's the right answer. He's like, nah, don't. It doesn't work that way. Like that doesn't make any sense in any other like place in the world other than the MLB.
Yeah, basically, it's in an establishment of the sports realm where rules are so important. You need to follow them. I don't know. That can also could transition that over to a discussion about officiating in playoffs, which we have some playoff action to talk about. Let's talk about some basketball that happened this week.
Basketball that happened this week. We got game 1 of the NBA Finals. So exciting between the Midwest Showdown. We have the Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder.
People did say the West Coast, East Coast people like, boring, bad matchup, bad finals.
Yeah,
no stars.
There is a lot of like kerfuffle about who is in the playoffs because there is no quote unquote draw. But I don't know how you like. Are you not going to watch like
it's the MVP versus the comeback kids?
Yeah, are you going to not watch the NBA Finals as well? Like, what else are you going to go?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go watch the sport we just got done talking about? I mean,
I didn't see a lot of people talking about the baseball games.
Yeah, so you're going to end up watching it regardlessly. And like you said, Shai versus Halliburton, who was Mr. Overrated. That title may be undeserved and be shed after the playoff run he's had. Game 1. Game we've kind of seen before, and they will play game 2 today as we're talking here on Sunday later this evening at 6 p.m. But game 1, Oklahoma City Thunder pretty much dominated all, we'll say 47 minutes of the game.
47 and 58 seconds is point 3, I believe.
Yeah, it was the full Thunder domination time. I'm going to say maybe a little bit less, maybe like 46 minutes before they started to have their crumble.
The crumble happened in the last 3 minutes for sure. But yeah, the first half was basically by the books in OKC whooping. Over 20 turnovers, I think, in that first half by the Pacers.
The Oklahoma City really only knows how to play one way of basketball, and thankfully enough, they have the free throw merchant himself, Shai. A lot of the times I was tuning in, I'd look and peek, and he's at the free throw line. A lot of love it. That's MVP caliber play right there. No shade. But game really only came down to the last few minutes there. The Pacers, I will say, they are there for a reason. They fought back a lot more often than I think people thought, and especially because Halliburton seems to be Mr. Clutch, even more so than Brunson himself, who got the award this year. In any tough situation that really, really matters, he comes through and shines, even against Mr. Clutch himself. In this game, no different here. Last few seconds, dribbles down and hits the game-winning shot. Game-winning 2. No bang, of course, because there was not a 3. Not as exciting, apparently. But Halliburton does seal the game for them, and the Pacers do go up 1-0 on Oklahoma City in Oklahoma City. Again, this is the playoffs where it doesn't really matter where you're playing. It seems like if you're home, you don't really have an advantage. If you're away, you kind of also don't have an advantage. Feels very, very balanced.
And this is, I think, been a consistent thing that we can look back on the trend of the last few years. The championship teams tend to not care about home or away. Like, even when both our teams won the cup those few years back, when the Avs did it in 22, they were like 12-2 on the road or something. They only had 2 road losses, I think, the entire run. I think the Nuggets were pretty similar in the 23 run.
Yeah, I think we had 3 or 4 because that Thunder series went long. Yeah,
exactly. And the Pacers, again, we watched them steal both of the first Knicks games in New York.
Yeah.
So yeah. Whatever the magic sauce is, whatever the secret stuff that's in the team, it looks like they have it this year. Because when this is their like 4th or 5th fourth quarter comeback just this playoffs.
Yeah, they do it quite often.
That's insane. Yeah, because they did it like twice against the Celtics, twice against the Knicks, and now against the Thunder. you better tune into the last 2 minutes of these games from now on. If you're at all interested in basketball, you gotta make sure you're there for the ending, because it doesn't matter really what the score says coming into the third or even early in the fourth. It can go any way.
Yeah, the one thing I will say that the Pacers have going for them that the Thunder do not is Pacers do have some championship caliber players on the team. So Pascal Siakam and I think a few other dudes on their team already know what it takes to win and feels like to win. So having that on your team is huge. Oklahoma City Thunder being the youngest team in the NBA, even younger than some of the NCAA teams that are out there.
That's wild.
Yeah, so their average age is I think like 23 or 24, and some college teams are about the same, if not.
If it's stacked with seniors or something.
Yeah, like I think the Florida Gators team was like 24 or something like that.
There was definitely, I think, some of that inexperience on display in that fourth quarter collapse as well, because it was, you can give Tyrese all his flowers for the comeback effort, but there are also some fingers to point on the defensive side when you give up a 12-2 run in a minute 10 or something.
Yeah, and I mean the Thunder have done this even a couple times against the Denver Nuggets that we saw as well, where it's just you just go on a late run. I think it was the first or second game in Oklahoma City where Gordon hits the three
Yep.
to kind of tie up the series and grab one away from Oklahoma City.
I think, we've yet to see the Thunder prove that they can throw the brakes on one of those comebacks and like shut it down, because they had chances and it was shy, missing shots late. It was, I think Lou Dort got a bad caster curse. He had 5 threes in like the first half, and like he's on fire. He didn't hit another one all night.
Yeah, just an adjustment to make sure he doesn't hit anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Oklahoma City, I assume eventually in this series is going to win big. Like every series, they seem to win a game by 40 or whatever, but that's not really
in a best of 7 series. You'll take one of those, though. I think if you're on the other side of it, and be like, yeah, we'll take one good punch to the face and then come back at you for another scrap.
Yeah, as long as
it's not game 7.
Yeah, as long as it's not game 7, as long as they're not up 3, we're good.
Yeah, a very entertaining start to that series that, again, a lot of people downplayed as being uninteresting. But, for all the controversies of foul calling and which is still all there, Shai still gets the softest whistle we've seen all playoffs.
'Tis the way of the MVP, at least if you're a little
as long as your name is not Nikola.
You can't be a 7'1" angry Serbian. That's rule number 1.
I reckon. What other basketball news came out this week?
Other basketball news, of course, we have the WNBA action. We are in the midst of the Commissioner's Cup, another in-season tournament, because in-season tournament things seem to be the way of the professional basketballs these days, because we really want to get our players playing earlier than
you want them invested in the early part of the season.
Yeah, because a lot of these seasons are long. The WNBA is not nearly as long as the NBA season, a full 86 grind. They're much shorter. But from this week, the game that I think hurt the heart a little bit was Golden State versus Las Vegas.
Was that the one the Aces got a little whooped up on?
They did. 95-68 was the final there. That
one was a surprise.
Yeah, this one was a little rough. Golden State was on a losing streak before coming into this, but this one hurts a little bit more because it just feels like Vegas is not. They are not the top dog anymore. It feels like the old dog now. Having
Might be a little changing of the guard.
Yeah, having Aja there, being potentially the best and greatest of all time throughout the WNBA history, which is the big possibility, is just not enough. The structure and the change-ups that they did this last offseason seem to be going sort of in the wrong direction, mostly because right behind our league leader, Nafisa, is Kelsey Plum, who they traded away, which was a huge asset for them. And
she's really, kind of stepped it up in the new digs.
Definitely, and she has to do so. Sparks, Los Angeles Sparks not winning nearly as much as you'd like to see from an LA team, but they are still young and trying to turn it around. And I think having Kelsey there and sort of bring the vibe and the championship energy is good to have, at least early on there. So maybe in a couple years here, there'll be a little bit of a different look. Vegas, on the other hand, kind of lost a few of their dogs and doesn't feel the same. On the other end there, the big game, Indiana versus Chicago Sky. This one a little bit sad because still no Caitlin Clark quite yet. So no Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese matchup. But this game did happen in the United Center, which I think is the biggest WNBA arena.
Yeah, that's the big one in Chicago.
Yep, nearly 20,000 fans showed up for this game, so I think it was one of the largest attendance ever. So huge for them. Unfortunately, Chicago's still figuring things out a little bit. As we know,
Not pretty out there.
They are much late starters, and I don't know. Maybe they'll flip it on here pretty soon, but early season's a little rough for them. Indiana does look good. I think they are at the top of their division. Looking just sort of at the standings, New York and Minnesota, who we saw in the championship last year, both have yet to lose a game, which is mighty incredible. Phoenix is right behind them, who did almost a complete flip of their team this season, sitting at 6-3. Not too bad for them. Vegas is at 5, 4-3 there, and Indiana, who's at the top of their division, oddly enough, is sitting at 3-4. But we got to remember, WNBA playoffs is a league-wide look, and we're only taking 8 of those guys into the playoffs. So Golden State, who is making their debut, is currently right now in place to make a playoff run.
Nice. And just as a little side note here, in live action today, those Minnesota Lynx undefeated at 8-0, currently 57-54 against the 1-8 Dallas Wings going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Dallas has, like I said, Dallas has been very, very good for most of the season. Like, they've been fairly competitive most of the games, but they are on the younger side, I will say, and missing sort of their key piece. Paige Becker's still out, I think, on concussion protocol. But I will say Dallas is angry, and they are hungry, and they've shown a lot of teams that they are right there.
It looks like right now we've got a little showdown between Nafisa and Arike Agumbawale. Arike with the slight edge right now, 24 points and 4 assists against Nafisa's 21.
Yep, and I do believe both unrivaled players.
Yep, they sure were. That's a rematch of the finals in Unrivaled, I believe.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the other game that happened today, Connecticut versus Washington, 67-104. That one.
I was going to let Connecticut slide on that one and just say they had a bad weekend.
They just kind of taken a whooping left and right. So I feel a little bad for them, because this is the second time they've lost by.
We were talking about them, getting shellacked by double digits last weekend too. So, rough time to be a Connecticut fan.
Yeah.
Was that all of our basketball for the week?
It was indeed.
Alrighty, I think that leaves us with just hockey to cover then.
Ooh, how exciting, because so many good things happened this week.
There was a lot of hockey news to cover, despite there only being 2 hockey games of action. And I guess we'll start there with our NHL finals. The rematch showdown, Edmonton and Florida. The series starting in Edmonton. I was a little surprised that Edmonton ended up with the home ice on this one, but Florida on the road to start this one, and two games straight to overtime. Surprise. It's been some very close hockey in these playoffs, and the finals proved to be no different. This is actually a nice change-up, though, because I don't know if you remember last year when this showdown happened, the Oilers went down 3-0 immediately.
Florida was just shellacking them all season long. But the one thing I will say is a little bit interesting. We don't get to see this all the time, because how often do teams make the finals back-to-back years?
We've discussed it very rarely.
Yeah, very, very rarely in a lot of sports. But now you kind of know what the scouting report, because Florida didn't change up a whole lot.
Yes, the cores are very similar. The changes are fairly minor in the fact that, we've had to see these guys a lot recently. We kind of know the book on them, and I think that has definitely led to some of the back and forth we've seen here this week.
Yeah, and as long as McDavid and Draisaitl and their supporting cast just don't completely suck again, we'll have a good series.
And that has been the big thing. Draisaitl played last year's finals basically with a broken arm, essentially. We found out after the fact he was really gutting through some injuries that were keeping him from performing at 100%. Game 1, Leon Draisaitl is healthy and ready to go and gets your first goal of the game to start the scoring off, and gets the overtime winner from Connor McDavid. That's kind of going right by the recipe there of that's how we constructed the roster to work, ideally. But Florida, again, has, we know that they built a winner because it's basically the same core that did it last year. And that Brad Marchand acquisition is looking smarter and smarter every day, which is what a good team does. It makes your GM look good for those trade deadline moves.
Yeah, he ends up with a game winner in game 2.
He got the overtime winner in game 2, putting him now in third place all time in Stanley Cup game-winning overtime winners, behind two of our players, Maurice Richard and Joe Sakic. I don't know if you knew about Clutch Joe had that record.
Did not know.
He is the most clutch overtime playoff player in history. It's 7 game winners in the playoffs.
Pretty good recognition to have there.
Yeah, one of my favorite tidbits of Super Joe's legacy. So yeah, it's been a very feisty back and forth. The goaltending has been excellent, despite there being more than like 6 goals every game.
I was say, there's some things like the goaltender can only do so much. Like the Oilers have a machine built, and it only knows how to shoot for the most part. It is all offense, a little bit light on the defensive side. Florida is kind of built a little bit more balanced, but the lack of the light on the defense side kind of allows for them to also be a little bit more full frontal on the offense as well.
Yeah, and again, I think there's also that the familiarity with each other's play style. Edmonton has found ways to adjust to the sort of bruising Panthers. In fact, in this one, in the first couple of games, we're seeing Edmonton being the scrappier of the two teams. Florida is kind of playing the we're not going to retaliate, we're going to try and draw the whistle, and Edmonton's trying to kind of pushing the physical play more forward. On the back end of that opens things up for Florida to allow some of their talent guys to make more of those talent plays and have to do less of the gritty work. But that being said, this has been a game that has been almost entirely dictated by the grimy forechecking battles that happen down in the corners, and just winning those clean, keeping possession, and then just like the fine details of passing and decision making on not getting baited into attempted passes that are actually traps, that type of thing that lead to turnovers. Both teams have kind of gotten their share of each of those plays. We did get in game 2 our first flash of the real Connor McDavid ceiling. The third goal of the game was a one of those highlight reel dangles where he just single-handedly undressed 3 of the Panthers and got the assist, slid it right through to Draisaitl, who was wide open on the right side. And if we get to see more of that, because honestly, McDavid's been relatively quiet. Like, he's putting up his numbers, but we haven't been seeing that special sauce of, oh, that's why people say he's the best player in the world.
I mean, it's going to be tough for him because a lot of people know he's a very special player, so it's going to be tough if everyone's kind of keying off you. Like, you have to be extraordinarily special to, because I assume him and Draisaitl are seeing, especially if they're split, a lot of double teams, triple teams, whatnot.
I think we're only seeing them combined on the power play, but I mean, what a power play unit. And it has proven effective thus far. Although both teams, I mean, they're going to have to enjoy the time they have in this run, because almost certainly the assistant coaches on both of these benches are going to have some phone calls in the offseason about, hey, do you want to come run our power play unit or our team? I think head coaching vacancies might be limited already. We're down to just a handful left. But actually, that might be the point to transfer to some around the league news, as 30 of our teams are no longer in action. Off-season has basically started for the rest of the league, so some other moves and whatnot have been getting made. The one for our division to take note of is that Pete DeBoer got fired in Dallas after not taking them to the promised land yet again.
But to say, there's a lot of seems like no one is safe out here if you're a coach anymore. Very similarly, the New York Knicks did fire Tom Thibodeau, who also just so close. Well, I shouldn't say just so closely, was just almost there to take them to the promised land.
Deep, yeah.
And it's same with Dallas. They were just right there. You could almost smell the promised land.
And you could say, I think probably similar for both of these coaches, you could say they've been around for 3-4 years respectively, but they really only got their good championship roster this last year. This was kind of their first big swing at it, and a very short leash to say the least, as far as, yeah, it's a little wild that your ownership group says, we know what you can do, and it's not quite good enough. We're going to try someone else.
It does seem a little crazy to me, right? That you come in, you change, because Dallas also was a little very similar to the Knicks, was struggling there for a bit. Come in, change the culture of this team, assemble a squad to kind of step your way right up into the promised land, and have the ownership come down and look at you and be like, you got us as far as you could do, buddy, but we're going to find someone who can finish sort of the journey that you started here.
Yeah. The other specifically Avs-centric note to this is that for whatever reason, Jared Bednar cannot beat Pete DeBoer in a Game 7. It has not happened yet in Jared Bednar's coaching career. And that has come across a couple teams in our path, whether that be as the coach of the San Jose Sharks, or as the coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, or as the coach of the Dallas Stars. Which he has been the coach of all those three teams when they have most recently eliminated us from the playoffs.
To the East he must go.
That would be honestly ideal. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone has any openings out East anymore. I think Dallas has an opening now, which he's obviously not going to fill.
Can I apply for this position that I see open?
Guys, I got on Indeed. I just searched for hockey coach openings. This was the first result.
It didn't tell me who was the owner of this position.
So yes, we would ideally like to see Pete DeBoer anywhere else but the Central Division next season.
To the East he must go.
That would be great. And then in our other Avs news, we did get a couple bits of information about what our roster is going to look like coming up for next year. The big news out of the week, controversially perhaps, Brock Nelson acquired at the trade deadline for 2 picks and our number 1 prospect, does sign a 3-year deal worth $7.5 million to stay on with the Avs, which is huge for us. We don't have to worry about that second center problem again. The wrinkle to that is we only had about $8 million and some change of cap space for this offseason coming in, and we have other contracts to settle out still, so there's almost certainly going to be some more money getting moved around before free agency or during free agency. And there are a few candidates for, or at least kind of obvious choices for contracts that look like you could move them for some flexibility. And the top 4 in that list are going to be Martin Necas, who there have been some rumblings in the offseason, wasn't super fond of his time in Colorado, didn't necessarily think it went as great as some other folks did. Some rumblings about whether or not he was gelling with the high expectations of Mr. Nathan McKinnon, who does make everyone give up pasta in the locker room. And that's not jokes. He does that. He's crazy.
Hey, if you're going to be the leader and you're trying to lead your men to victory.
Yeah, he comes in and be like, how much fish did you eat today, man? When was the last time you ate bread?
Close his locker.
Yep. So Martin Necas might be thinking that he also is not looking for a long-term stay in Colorado. He is signed through this coming season, but that means he's in the Mikko Rantanen position of you either move him this year for something or he walks in the summer for nothing. Miles Wood, Sam Girard, and Josh Manson are the 3 other guys that we have who have some term left on their contract and come in the $4 to $6 million range, which is enough that if you moved it, could potentially get you, not a replacement of that caliber, but you have now flexibility for maybe a couple smaller or cheaper guys to slot in to figure out some depth. So we will have to see what the market motion looks like. And then our other side note is Logan O'Connor had yet another off-season hip surgery, which I think he had last season as well. Like I'm having a lot of deja vu in our second year of This Week in Sports because we've had so many beats that just sound exactly like last year. But yes, Logan O'Connor successfully underwent hip surgery this week. His recovery timeline is 5 to 6 months, meaning he will ideally be ready to play hockey in December.
Yay!
We have him for 6 more years, though. So we know Logan O'Connor's good, and we want him to have the good hips. He's best when his hips are good.
And as we've learned, real hockey doesn't really start until after December. And
It's true. We just have to keep afloat until December. But with our goalie tandem intact for this year, hopefully, that won't be so difficult to achieve. Yes, I think that is all of our NHL news, and then we've got quite a big shakeup to discuss in the PWHL. Because despite finishing up the year, we are right into off-season roster management, as we discussed, with the expansion of the league to Vancouver and Seattle. Those two teams have already begun constructing their rosters. We got earlier in the week the list of players who were protected, and yeah, with some brutal decisions had to get made with only 3 protection spots. Spoilers, the 3 goalies who were finalists for Goalie of the Year all got protected. So that was Anne-Marie Desbiens, that was Gwyneth Phillips, and that was Erin Frankel. And that was kind of it as far... Montreal's made sense. They kept Desbiens, they kept Captain Clutch, Marie-Philippe Poulin, and they kept Laura Stacey. That's, your core 3 there. Surprisingly, though, we'll just go down the list. So Seattle and Vancouver have both signed 5 players already off of the initial wave of unprotected players. For Seattle, we know they will be fielding on the ice next year Hillary Knight, the captain from Boston, which a little bit of collusion. I mean, it's not collusion because it's a league where the one guy owns all the teams, but the new general manager in Seattle did come from the Boston organization and then did immediately steal their captain.
Yeah, I mean, one, it was on them to... Everyone is kind of a free agent-ish this year, for one, and 2, they didn't protect her, so she was kind of on her way out. She is, I think, going to be on the older side as well, which is why they didn't want to keep her there.
This is a very calculated decision. Hillary Knight is one of the older players in the league. She's sort of the older generation of talent that has started the league here. Still, obviously, a great performance. She was in the top in goal scoring this year. I think she came away with most goals. We decided earlier in the year. But this is also very much a branding decision and a marketing decision. It is known that if you take Hillary Knight to a new market, she will attract people to watch her play hockey. So if people in Seattle didn't know, you have at least one that's American hero Hillary Knight. Come watch her in Seattle now.
Come watch her in Vancouver.
Yeah. So that's the sort of big one out of, and that was the first one we got of the week. It was like Hillary Knight, bam, gone. Also on the Seattle roster now is going to be Alex Carpenter from the New York Siren. No more 1-2 punch for Sarah Fillier out there. She's also going to be missing her goalie. Corrine Schrader is going to be suiting up for Seattle now. And then also on that roster, Kayla Barnes, defender from Montreal, and Danielle Serdachny off the Ottawa Charge. And that's a pretty solid starting 5 to get your franchise going with there. So I would say Seattle has gone a little offensive heavy on this one. Vancouver thinking kind of the exact opposite. Their signings include Sarah Nurse from Toronto, who is probably maybe the second most famous Canadian Olympian behind Marie-Philippe Poulin. Rookie Jennifer Gardner comes from the Montreal Victoire to her hometown of Vancouver. She gets to be the sort of local face of the franchise. Goalie Emerence Mashmeyer, who we used to talk about in the first half of the season last year, before she got usurped by the hottest rookie that we've ever seen in Gwyneth Phillips. So Mashy is going to go on to Vancouver, get a starting job back, and then pinching the top 2 defensemen from the defending champs, Sophie Jakes and Claire Thompson, come from Minnesota out to Vancouver. I think that's going to be the big... That's taking a line of defensemen away from the defending champions and putting them on your roster.
That's kind of crazy.
That's a good move with a solid goalie who just needs some reps. She's still solid. She just got outgunned by the young pup.
This is up there the last season of the WNBA was crazy because you had so many. There was a couple teams who you just completely rolled the whole roster over almost. But this
Mhm.
one is crazy because everyone's affected so big
Yeah.
in this shakeup. Like you said, Hillary Knight. I mean, a lot of people kind of saw her moving on. That's kind of been the way of the.
I don't think anyone was particularly surprised by that that she wasn't staying in Boston, but it is I can't actually think of another equivalent in sports where like one of your biggest stars has also been a bit of, maybe the Shaq era when he was kind of bouncing around teams every other year or so.
Yeah, not
But even then, that was kind of past his
yeah,
prime Shaq.
not as much. I don't know if Hillary is quite past her prime.
She's definitely not. She's still very much contributing.
Yeah, like Shaq is I mean, the later Shaq years where he was still pretty good on the Heat, and then he was pretty decent on the Sun, and then after that it was kind of a little bit of a wash. But
It's
there's
hard to think
no
of other players though who have like the kaleidoscope of jerseys, but still had the talent like at each stop. I can't. Yeah, it's a
it,
short list if
it
there are
doesn't
any.
happen to the like people with big name recognition. Those are the people you see more like the role players that you have, not your captain usually.
Yes, that is a bit of a surprise there, but like I said, she has always been a great ambassador of the game of hockey in any capacity, whether that's been for Team USA, for her college teams. Hillary has kind of that's I think been uh, one of the big boons to women's hockey in this era is that we have some top talent like that, like Hillary Knight, like Marie-Philippe Poulin. I could name like half of the Frost team who have all like most of this generation, but there's been that leadership set by a group who has taken it upon themselves to do that job of being the ambassador, like going to events, giving of their time, not just because there is it's a full-time job to be a professional athlete and perform at that top level, and then to ask of you to give what little of your free time you have to then go out into the community and like get the word out there about come see our games and that sort of thing. Not everyone can do that and do it with the aplomb that these ladies have done. And yeah, slam dunk for Seattle to take what will be a Hall of Fame career and set up your new franchise around that.
I am excited for the day that Denver hockey does come around because it'll be fun to see who will be available then. We'll have a couple more teams, I assume, but it'll be fun to see all the names that we've talked about uh, as the podcast has gone on throughout the league. Maybe who knows? Maybe a Philip D. Oh my gosh, a Marie Philip Debienne will be available. Good enough.
One of those, yeah.
Yeah, all of them, all three.
All three of them. Yeah, so that was the first stage in the expansion process was the unrestricted signing phase. So now Seattle and Vancouver both have 5 of their 12 base roster spots filled. Tomorrow, Monday, you can tune in as the official expansion draft happens with both teams getting 7 picks now from the remaining 6 teams of their protected players. And this was also part of the strategy of the signing period where if a team has already had 2 players taken off their roster, they unlocked their 4th protection slot. So Minnesota has gotten an extra protection slot. Montreal got an extra protection slot. I think Toronto and Ottawa were the only ones who did not have 2 players taken yet. So they will still be losing 3 players in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, Ottawa was just in the championship too, weren't they?
Yeah, which is partially why they don't want to be moving too many pieces. I think they've done a pretty good job so far of dodging too many bullets, but surprisingly, I think a lot of the charge core is also going into free agency, and that I think will follow our draft. So still a lot more shaking up to happen in that PWHL, but in just this, first week postseason, we are anticipating now a very different look for the rosters around the league.
Yeah, everybody's basically getting a buzzsaw. Everyone's getting a cut except for the people coming in who are getting the benefits of all the other teams. That Like you're gonna lose half your team kind of almost regardless.
A little bit, yeah. There will be new faces in every place.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and otherwise, I think that covers all of my hockey news for this week, which should bring us around to our fan favorite segment, the closing sports quiz.
Yes, the closing sports quiz, an invention from my ideas, from my dark thoughts.
Yep. I got to quiz you last time, so here I go to get ready for whatever topic you have chosen.
Whatever topic I have chosen, and there's so many to choose from, so many different topics, so many themes. I got to switch to this week, so I decided this
interesting
week we are going to do video game themes from our sports, which you should know a little bit more about.
I think I know some video games about sports, but let's see. We'll find out here.
We will find out here, and I did break them up because I kind of like to break them up by each category, kind of learn some things myself as we go along. So we'll start in a place you're very familiar with here on the ice as we just stepped off. We will relace our skates and step back onto the ice rink here.
Oh boy.
First question of this week's quiz is, what year did our first true NHL hockey game release? Was it 1990, 1991, 93, 95?
You've given me a very generous range of answers here.
I did.
It's definitely not 1992.
Nope, it's not there.
I'm going to say it's either 91 or 93. I will err on the 91 side.
Points for you. Bonus points if you can tell me which distribution made the first hockey game, the first actual simulation hockey game.
In 1991, that would have been on still Super Famicom / Super Nintendo era. From I don't think EA existed yet. I don't know the bonus point.
EA did actually exist, and they did actually do this video game here. In fact, they were our first true NHL hockey game. There were a lot of hockey games before this, none of which had the NHL teams and NHL players as we know today. There was another game that was just called NHL Hockey, which was just two teams, green and red, that you could choose from, and that was it. No players, no teams. Very, very. It was even less than 8-bit. Might have been a little 2-bit game.
Oh boy,
it was a little interesting.
8-bit.
Yeah, it was 8-bit, but it was tough for my eyes to see, and with the graphics that we have today.
Absolutely, the 91 original, EA NHL game was very good.
It was very.
Although
very
94 was better.
There's a game with, I think Sakic has a cover of one of them or something like that.
Yeah, he was maybe 95.
95 and 96 on the PlayStation 1. I do remember playing that for a little bit. Continuing down our hockey range here, of course, the Great One has his own hockey game as well. How many other NHL players have a hockey game named after it? Is it 0, 1, 2, or 3?
0, 1, 2, or 3. Who are the other NHL players who might have a game named after them? Besides Wayne Gretzky. And Gretzky's didn't do so hot.
It did not. He does have multiple versions, and he was one of the earlier hockey games before we got the EA version 2 as well.
Yeah, that all checks out. Because again, he peaked in the 80s. That was when he was hot stuff. Because then later than that, it was all under the EA banner. But someone might have gone on a flyer, and I'm going to say one other player has an NHL game.
Oof. So close. Actually, 2 have an NHL for another game. Do you think you might know who one of is? Who's the name that you were potentially thinking of?
This is an odd pull, but does Mike Modano have a game?
He does not.
Okay.
The 2 games that I found were Mario Lemieux hockey, of course.
That checks out.
And, of course, there was one Brett Hall hockey.
Brett Hall, of course. That's a wild pull that Brett Hall did. But yeah, he was a little bit more media savvy. Modano could have had one.
Could have, but did not.
Same era, yeah.
Those were the 2 that I found. Each only had the one hockey game to their name.
I bet you there's probably a European Jaromir Jagr game somewhere out there.
Oh, 100%. The other fun fact from our 91 game is NHL Hockey 91 did not exist outside the U.S. because of licensing agreements. It was
they didn't get the Canadians on board.
It was, I think it might have been in the Americas that worked because you'd have some Canadian teams, but out in Europe it was just EA Hockey where you got to play as the national team.
Oh boy.
because they didn't
They
have any of
didn't
the
get
NHL
any of the
licenses. So little extra tidbit there. Jumping to my favorite sports, the NBA. The NBA has, of course, we've had a number of basketball games come through. The biggest one that we have and that you know of is 2K. Of course, EA also had their run of hockey games. What was the name of the EA franchise? Was it just NBA? Was it NBA Elite, NBA Live, or was it NBA Ballers?
The EA franchise was NBA Live, I want to say.
Was 100% EA NBA Live. Actually, there was an extra bonus point there. They actually did release one game title in their series of Live that they called NBA Elite.
Interesting.
Oddly enough. But a majority of them, 99% of them, were NBA Live before they shut down because 2K kind of been whooping them since.
Okay, very good, very good. Do you know off the top of your head what year it was NBA Elite? Was that like one of the near the 2000s?
It was later, in fact. It was 2011 with Kevin Durant on the cover that they decided to name change.
Weird.
The funny thing about that, I think, is the year after 2012, the game got canceled because they just couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't put it out, and the Live franchise has now been canceled 3 different times.
Oof.
So they made a comeback, which they made a pretty actually decent basketball like simulation to compete with 2K, but didn't get enough traction.
Yeah.
So they got canceled a couple years after that and tried to do one more comeback, and that one got.
The mid 2000s were rough
left.
for competing with EA.
They were actually running the mid 2000s up until 08, basically. The 08 year, both games were really, really good. But after that, EA kind of fell into their normal standard. We are going to do.
They got the monopoly. Like, here's the games we're going to do, and we're not going to really change them up.
Correct. And 2K did the opposite, where they were kind of changing things up and making things a lot better for the players, which is why they ended up grabbing a lot of the margin. Moving over to a game that you even talked about, let's talk a little bit about MLB The Show, potentially one of the best sports games of all time, depending on which one you look at.
Yeah, I was going to say, very dependent on which version you're playing.
Yes. Very first game of the show came around in 2006. Who was on the cover of this game? Was it Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, Vladimir Guerrero, or Big Papi himself, David Ortiz?
In 2006, I think that was Big Papi.
Was indeed Big Papi. Big Papi did indeed grace the cover of the very first MLB The Show video game. That one I do believe is up there in the Hall of Fame of video games, if I remember correctly, because it was something such fresh and brand new that a lot of our baseball fans didn't get to experience quite yet in the video game.
It was
atmosphere.
Also the opposite of the Madden curse, because they went on to win the World Series, I think, that year.
They did. I do believe so. I think they did continue to.
And then they back-to-backed us the following year in 07.
We try to ignore
which is why I remember that was. Yeah. Anyway, yes, very good.
And of course, it would not be a video game quiz here, especially talking about sports, if we didn't talk about the granddaddy of them all, Madden.
Gotta cover the Madden.
The Madden video game has been around for a long while. In fact, John Madden has graced the cover quite a few times. And through the beginning, he was actually the star piece of it because he is, Madden himself on the video game. When is the first video game where Madden has no appearance on the cover at all? Is it Madden 02, Madden 04, Madden 06, or Madden 08?
Ooh, tricksy. I'm going to say, for no reason other than guessing, 04.
It is not. Madden and still does include, so 02 was the very last time I think we see John Madden as like the full figure on the cover. 04, he is no longer on the cover, but he is a little icon on the cover throughout it. 06 is the first time that we no longer see Madden at all on the cover.
2 years early, but yeah, that was the era they were kind of phasing out.
It was indeed. And given our professional football a little homage here, of course, we have the EA Madden game. Do you remember the name of the game that EA put out alongside Madden earlier in the 2000s as sort of their arcade answer to football?
Was that NFL Blitz?
It was not NFL Blitz. That was not the EA version.
Okay, the EA version would have been... Was it something stupid like Hits?
It was not.
No.
It was NFL Street, in fact.
Oh my God, I do remember NFL. For some reason, it was, like we're playing football in a back lot or something.
Putting football in a black back lot in an alley, whatever. You can run along
and
walls.
with some weird superpowers. And
It was a
very arcadey game.
very arcadey, very, very fun. A couple of those are up there. Some very, very great football games.
Yes, I remember you and Cody frustrating me with this one in particular.
Yes, you run along the walls and you can't really you can't do anything about it.
There were some very unbalanced mechanics to that particular instance of football video game, but yes, a classic and memorable. And I do wish they did like arcade versions still. That was always fun.
Yeah, I think they're becoming more common now that we sort of have some of these handheld consoles like the Switch I just got and some of the other places. There is some more.
There's definitely like a nice little wave of indie developers who are trying to fill that niche, but it would be fun to get like a licensed one with
the
players and everything.
All the sports are now a little bit more opening to licensing some of their players and games and whatnot, because the simulation ones have not. The simulation ones seem to be going down in sort of what
it's
people are buying.
It's stagnated quite a bit. It's created a logjam of the expectation of great product with a 1 year turnaround, but we want it to be fresh and new and exciting too every year. Like you can't do all three.
Yeah, I mean, a couple years back, I'm pretty sure 2K won a bid to do an arcade version. 2K actually has potentially what is the greatest simulation football game of all time with the ESPN football games. If you had not played them and you have a PS2 emulator or whatnot, you should go. They still very much hold up against time, at least from a football standpoint. They're super.
Oh yeah, as well, yeah, for that era, I guess. It's kind of funny to think of like how different the rule sets and everything are just for like already from the time change. But yeah, for that era of football, those were very like, yeah, because there was the divide in the two franchises over like who could be a little bit more actual like simulation, and then EA kind of leaned into a little bit more broadcast style.
Very much so. The 2K one I like, and I still even go back to this time and go back and play them. It's just because you have it feels a lot more like the football team. Like you can go through and renegotiate your contracts. There's like the real injuries that you have that EA is taking out because the NFL still those don't exist here.
Yeah, did not approve of the messaging that was giving of why everyone's getting head injuries.
Correct.
Sure.
A few more games like that. There's couple NBA jams running around out there. I've never seen there's been hockey sort of arcadey games, but nothing with NHL licensed players that I have seen thus far.
No, not since I'm going to say the Backyard Baseball franchise did a backyard hockey, and that was about as the most recent I can remember of arcade hockey, where it was like not super realistic, but still had the licensing for the teams.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey has the ownership of that now, so maybe we'll see some more backyard sports come along.
We're definitely getting more backyard baseball. That's been announced.
Yeah, for sure. That is sort of the staple of the backyards, because what else can you do in your backyard but play baseball?
That's the first thing you think of anyway.
Yes, for sure. So in our quiz this week, you went 3 for 6.
Hey, I think I'm getting better.
A good solid 50%.
Absolutely an improvement from my last outing on the quizzes. I'm pretty certain.
Yes, we have improved now that we're starting to dive into some areas that you may know a little bit more about.
Much more in my wheelhouse, this one. But yeah, we'll definitely have to start keeping track of those things. I think that will be my project for this week, is to get our leaderboard up and running on the new website.
Yes, we do have a new website. Go check us out. It's going to be 3, spelled out 3, and then 21.com. That's going to be numeric 2 and 1. Pods.com.
If you forget and just put in a 3, a 2, and a 1 and pods.com, it will still work.
Yeah, we will redirect you there as well. If you have not followed us yet on Spotify, please go do so. We are slowly building up our YouTube channel as we kind of develop and continue our growth along the way. Our episodes can also be found on our website. I think eventually I assume you have a link to your shop there as well for some of the sporting goods.
Once we got some sporting specific stuff, we will have links to the merch. But yes, if you have any feedback on any particular episode, you can go find that episode at 321pods.com. Leave us a little note. What did you like? What did we miss? What did we forget? What did we totally talk out of our butts about?
Yeah. For sure.
We definitely want to hear all of those mistakes.
All of our mistakes. If you do not agree, feel free to chime in. I'm more than welcome to having I don't know if it's like a 2-directional, because I'm on the podcast and have to respond to you online. But we'll we'll find a
We'll
way.
figure it out. Yes, but anyway, there is place to leave us feedback now. 321pods.com. And continue to catch our lovely podcast here on Spotify. Later in the week on YouTube.
Yes,
all that good stuff.
Please do share with your friends, your family, whoever else may enjoy the sports content.
We're going to start putting more of the little clips out so you can hand them little chunks and not just the whole hour-and-a-half episode and say, go on, sit down, listen.
Yeah, indeed. And maybe some little chunks that makes them want to come in and listen, because not everyone really cares about some of the sports, and we'll do some little chunks of the trivia and whatnot as well. So thank you guys for coming along on this journey, and a big journey for us because we are now stepping our toes into the journey of growth, going a little Jack and the Beanstalk. I have been your host here, the host with the most, Zach, and along with me I've had my hockey expert, Nick.
Adios, gang.
See you guys next time.